After 20 prototypes, 4 Sinner's Ashes, 6 Moonzite Tomes, and many hours of prep, I have transcended all aspects of Godslayer version 4, resulting in higher DPS, higher mobility, and even tankier build, all coming together to create a true boss-killing calamity, Godslayer version 5. So let's go over all the revisions of version 4, then we'll cover the stat order and progression of V5, and finally how to actually play it, since it's a very hard PvE build to master if you don't know what you're doing. But first, let's briefly go over the feats of this PvE build so you know what you're getting yourself into. First, it managed to one-cycle Griff Chaser without building any chain stacks or even using crazy slots. The reason not building any chain stacks is so good is because a lot of other builds will waste time building chain stacks, and that'll result in a slower run overall. So doing this strategy netted me a 3 minute and 18 second in-game time for layer 2, which I can definitely improve on. Next, I managed to get a 29 second Primadon with this build, yet again without building any chain stacks or using crazy slots. And you've also got to keep in mind that 10 seconds of this fight was spent with me being kicked away or grabbed, so this fight could easily go below 20 seconds, which, fun fact, would be faster than the time that the world record holder kills Primadon in. And of course, I wasn't using crazy slots for either of these feats, which is 20% less damage, and if I built chain I could double my damage again, and if I used Ring of Casters I could get 10% more damage on my mantras, but I just didn't think of it at the time. So as always, if you want to see more PvE builds like this one, or just like the build or the videos so far, make sure to like and subscribe and join the Discord for the Buildmaker link. Alright, let's briefly go over the major revisions. The first one was something I haven't used since Godslayer version 1, a new attunement, Gale. I took Gale on this build specifically to get Aftercut, a 10% damage boost when I inhale a Gale mantra, and Gale Leap, which provided some much needed extra mobility. I also fully switched out Iron Sing for Thundercall. This is to get me Lightning Cloak, a swing speed buff, as well as Arc Welder, the best PvE oath in the game, due to the amount of mantra slots as well as damage resistance the oath gives. Thundercall also gives me Raging Static, which is a 20% damage buff when I pop it, and I apply surge stacks on hit. So that's everything major with the build in terms of revisions. There's actually 3 versions of Godslayer V5. The base version, a version with Immolation and Volcanic Glass, and a version that can use wave dashing for layer 2 speedrunning purposes. Don't worry though, because all of these builds only have one single change compared to the base Godslayer V5, so the progression is virtually the same, and I'll explicitly say whenever anything different comes up. First of all, you can do this build on literally any race. It'll just result in less weapon points at the end on some races. However, I will leave a separate Buildmaker link for every race in my Discord if you really need to see what's different. Anyways, on the starting screen you want to make sure that you get 6 Gale and 5 Thundercall, then you invest no starting points except for 5 willpower. For your ideal origin you want to go Deep Bound just because of all the PvE buffs it gives, and then I actually went Vow of Thorns on the build. While this made the trial harder and made me go to depths after 1 death, the better loot drop from monsters, which is essentially a passive loot skipper, was worth it for min-maxing in my opinion. So once you actually spawn in, you'll start by spamming the Gale training item. As long as the animation plays of training Gale, you will be getting XP towards your element. On your first power up, you'll always get 1 mantra hand, so you want to try to get a 0-star Gale mantra like Windblade or Air Force. Then you can simply just train on the guards or monsters that are around, because you'll be getting all the way to 60 Gale. Then you'll simply just repeat this same method for getting to 50 Thundercall. Your ideal mantra for training is Lightning Beam. From there you train all the way up to 20 willpower. If you want to do this safely, you can just AFK somewhere safe at Castle Light while using the prayer beads, and then you get to 15 strength. Yet again, you actually can just spam the dumbbell to train strength automatically. Then you get to 35 willpower. From here, you'll need to escape the depths. You can do this one of 3 ways: using an Idol of Young Shul, buying a carry from somewhere like PvE Hub, or killing an Enforcer, assuming you don't have Vow of Thorns. You're going to the overworld because there is 4 major things you need to do to make this build even stronger. First is getting your 3 extra talent hands. You can watch Mamble's guide on this, because this will significantly help you to get the extra rares that you'll need for the build pre-shrine. Then you'll go talk to the Frost Draw and Flame Charm trainers in order to get both the attunements. Next and finally is the big one. You need to kill Kaido. It seems very hard, but there's actually 3 really easy methods that can allow you to get Ardor pre-shrine. First, you can just find the sea event and get Ardor if you don't want to kill Kaido at all, but this isn't the most consistent method. The second way is to buy a carry from PvE Hub yet again, so that way someone will spawn Kaido, you hit him a few times, and then once he dies, you'll get Ardor. Third way is to spawn Kaido on one slot, weaken him, hop to your slot that actually needs Ardor, and if you do this fast enough, you'll be able to kill Kaido and get Ardor very easily. You want Ardor pre-shrine simply because it gives you the Ardor Scream talent, which on use gives you 25% more damage as well as 50% more posture damage, which is absolutely huge since it's a debuff that's applied to enemies, meaning that it's bypassing the damage cap. Anyways, after you've unlocked Ardor, you'll head back to the depths. Now at this point, if you're specifically going version 5.1 that takes Immolation and Volcanic Glass, you'll start off by getting 40 willpower, then 40 flame charm, then you invest 1 point into agility, fortitude, and heavy weapon. Then you drink the frost potion and invest 1 more point into one of your stats, just so you can get an extra power up before you Shrine of Order. Of course, make sure you're using the Mystic to get all the cards you need. But if you're not planning to go Immolation and Volcanic Glass, and are either progressing the base version or version 5.2, then you start off by going 40 willpower, then invest 1 point into your agility, fortitude, and heavy. This is simply just to allow you to get the most heavy weapon points post-shrine. You won't actually power up before you Shrine of Order now, so what you'll need to do is go to the Mystic and guarantee Ardor Scream. The prompt will end with Own Frequency. Then before you talk to Shrine of Order, you want to talk to Shrine of Chance and reroll a common card in order to get Ardor Scream. Due to the fact you misticked for it, you'll 100% get it in your talent hand. Then once you've got that card and you've made sure you've gotten everything else, you want a Shrine of Order. However, regardless of the build you're progressing, if you notice you're missing extra rares and commons, then you want to use Shrine of Blasphemy just to guarantee that the build won't fail. Of course, make sure that you're taking or burning extra rares that the build doesn't need, and are using Mystic throughout the progression, just to minimize the chances of needing to use Shrine of Blasphemy. Of course though, if you don't have enough knowledge to use Shrine of Chance and Shrine of Order, I have a video on my channel that shows you a bunch of one-time knowledge quests that can easily get you an extra 5 knowledge without doing anything too difficult. Regardless, off Shrine of Order, the best floor you can get is Glutton, simply because this build uses Carnival. And that is the hard part of the build out of the way, and the post-shrine is actually really easy. You start off by going to 25 agility, then 25 fortitude, simply so you can get conditioned runner as early as possible. Then you go to 20 strength for the purposes of getting spine cutter, then you get 30 flame charm, unless you went to 40 flame charm pre-shrine for version 5.1, in which case you don't need to invest in any more flame charm. Then from here you go to 75 frost draw and 75 heavy weapon, unbound them both by killing a boss. Then you get to 80 frost draw for level 5 mantras, and then here if you're planning to progress version 5.2, you invest 5 points into charisma for cap artist. This will allow you to wave dash with heavenly wind, but only in layer 2. And then regardless of what version you're progressing now, you'll invest the rest of your points into your heavy weapon, and that should leave you somewhere around the high 80s to 90s. Now let's go over some other stuff for the build. For your traits, you want to get 6 proficiency and 6 song chant for maximum damage. For your oath, you're going to be taking Arc Welder on this build, so make sure you do the quests in layer 2 to obtain it. The 2 major benefits of Arc Welder is giving you more mantra slots and giving you the Arc Suit, which for any boss you think you need to equip it on, will give you a 10% damage reduction to all damage sources. This essentially means we replace the exoskeleton weapon on version 4, which only negated 10% physical damage, with the ability to also negate 10% elemental damage. So it's a pretty good trade-off. For your bell, you obviously want to go crazy slots. Unless you're a rare example like me, where I got dimensional travel, crazy slots will give you the highest possible damage on the build, as simply using Divine Great Axe will yield you over 20% more DPS to bosses, so you'll even be out damaging me. Next, for your outfits, you can either use a Prophet's Cloak if you want maximum damage, or Ignition Deep Delver if you want some more defense on the build. These are all the mantras that I run on the build, as well as their modifiers. While I don't use something like Flame Wisp on the build, you're welcome to run it if you want. The only thing that I don't have is Heavenly Wind, which you'll be taking if you plan to progress version 5.2 that can wave dash. You'll just replace Ice Skates with Heavenly Wind, simply because wave dashing can get you where Ice Skates takes you a little bit faster, although it is a lot harder to use and only works in layer 2, due to the fact it was unpatched there for speedrunning purposes. Next, for your weapon, you'll be using a 3-star damage enforcer's axe. With the exception of crazy slots related weapons, a 3-star damage enforcer's axe is the highest damaging thing you can use in the game, especially when paired with speed deep. For your enchant, there is 3 that are really good. Astral, providing 20% more damage, however this is really rare. Next, you can use Grim, which is arguably better than any other enchant in the game for this build, simply because whatever you're attacking with Grim will take 20% more damage from your M1s and mantras. And seeing as this build uses mantras for a lot of its damage, it's really good. The last enchant is Umbral Knight. This is a little bit more consistent than Grim, and is pretty much tied with Astral in terms of damage. However, out of all of them, you should probably be using Grim. And that's all the major stuff for progressing Godslayer V5. As long as you're using Mystic, follow the guide, and take and burn extra rares, you'll be perfectly fine progressing this build first try. Of course, if you have any more information that you would like to know, you can watch how I progress this build in the prog video that will be up at the exact same time. Keep in mind I progressed this build a few weeks ago, so my progression will be a little bit less linear than what I've described here. Anyways, let's get into how to play this build and how you can actually master it, since it will take time to learn, but oh boy, is it 100% worth learning. The first trick that you've got to know and know well is perfect casting. This is because you're going to weave frost mantras between your M1s. Using Warden's Blades, Frozen Servants, Ice Flock, and Ice Cubes provide you incredible damage as long as you're using them right, because if you mistime the casting of a mantra, you'll essentially lose an M1, which while one M1 doesn't sound like a huge deal, on a top tier PvE like this, where your M1s can be dealing upwards of 4,000 damage per hit, that's a lot of damage you're missing out on. Next, managing your tempo is a huge deal, mainly for something like Chaser and Atheron. This is because Ardor Scream removes all of your ether when you use it, and you need ether to cast stuff like Inhale and Lightning Cloak, so making sure you're parrying attacks and getting as many hits off with your mantras as you can will give you extra ether. For example, I don't use Flame Within at the start of Chaser, just so I can parry his vent to gain a lot of tempo back. Speaking of Flame Within, you want to make sure that you're specifically using Flame Within and Raging Static in the correct order. You cast Raging Static and then Flame Within. Doing it in this order will provide you an extra 45% damage buff to your M1s, simply because you're stacking Charge Return on top of it. Casting Flame Within before Raging Static will cause Flame Within to disappear. And then the final thing you need to know about this build is make sure you're inhaling your Gale Lunge every 5 or so seconds. This is because it provides you a speed boost when you do so, and allows your M1s to be affected by Aftercut. And that is the complete guide to progressing and mastering the best PvE build in Deepwoken. With this, you can absolutely shred bosses and move like no other PvE build can. If you want to see more insane feats with this build, or potentially even stronger builds in the future, make sure you like and subscribe so you know when those are uploaded. And of course, join the Discord if you want the original Buildmaker link and any updated versions I may post. Anyways, make sure you check out some more PvE content, and I'll see you all next time.